Okay, let's get started, everybody. Thanks for coming this morning. We appreciate you taking an hour right here to get together and go over some stuff that's pretty important as we think and get a little more training as we go. So we'll get started here. I'll go to my screen here.
I know.
Okay, so as usual, I think your microphone's still on, Amy.
Yeah.
And Roswell, I can hear you guys too. So as usual, when this is over, we'll post this meeting, this training on our webpage. It's a little different from last year. It's just one page now,
Yes, sir.
but you'll see that on the transportation page. Um, so we'll go over some celebrations, some wow winners, and some business items. Then Amy will take some time to go over some safety training. Then I want to talk a little bit about managing student behavior. And then Cindy will take a little time with the driver's sped and preschool training. So, and anytime you have any comment or just jump in, I won't be able to see you when we've got this screen up like this. So just pipe in if you need a question or have a comment. So just wanted to tell everybody thanks for your a great start this year. We've had our bumps and bruises as we go, but some changes here and there, but things are going great. So it's the reason why it's great is because of you guys and the way you handle your business and the way you treat kids and each other. So thanks so much for all you do that way. Wanted to just tell a quick say thank you to the subs for stepping in and driving when the route drivers are away and others are away from their routes. We sure appreciate your being willing to help us out. We had a great summer. Well, I'll wait to talk about that in the celebration in the little bit here down at the bottom. Um, Continue to tell your friends and neighbors about the need for bus drivers. Sometimes the ones you wouldn't think would be interested are the ones that might have an interest. And so when you get a chance, tell them that we're looking for bus drivers. A shout out to our mechanics doing a great job keeping our buses going. They work real hard and try to stay up on things. So we appreciate all that they do. And then Cindy and Amy and Gina and Wayne moving our drivers through the training. We sure appreciate you guys and the time that you're spending. Lots of things going on, and you're finding time to put these people through. So we had a really good class in the summer that 4 or 5 or 6 people went through. One moved that was planning on being a sub. Another did something else, but we've got some really good drivers coming through, and then we got 2 or 3 more since then that Amy and Cindy are working through to get them caught up or maybe retrained to satisfy our district requirements. They've already got they're former bus drivers and those kinds of things that can help us out when subbing. And so they're just always busy training new drivers for us. So we really appreciate their time and efforts. Thanks to Deb for putting this together. Here are our wild card winners. And just if you're new to the team or to the department here, we want to explain how this works. So we're just trying to be positive, build a positive culture. If you see someone that's a driver or someone that's part of our department or team, just do something positive. Grab a wild card. There should be one at your garage or on the desk somewhere there, and just write briefly what you saw and why it was positive. And as you can see here, we have winners from each garage, and you can see the positive things that are happening. This is just a small fraction of what is really happening, and that's probably a smaller fraction of what's really happening to help our buses and our kids and our just everything run smoothly. And so don't be afraid to take a minute, write down something positive about one of your fellow drivers or someone in the department, and then we do a drawing each at each garage to name a winner. You get a $20 gift certificate. So, all right, let's go to some of the business. Um, we have the bus evacuations planned. Here's the schedule for that, and I sent out an email to the coordinators. Um, but maybe jot that down if you whatever one it pertains to you. We're going to go to the elementaries in Connemore and uh, do a little assembly before, and then we'll head out to the buses to conduct the evacuations. Deb, are you with us? I don't think Deb is on here, but we wanted to talk about her. She wanted to say something about her A1 meetings coming up, and I think you're are you guys aware of those? Have you been signing up for those? Yours is Wednesday. Alamont says theirs is Wednesday, so I think she's been in contact with you guys, so that's good. Um, just a reminder, check your texts and emails daily. In our modern world today, we've got a lot of ways to contact people, so to make sure that we can get the word out when we need to, we're using texts and emails, if not a phone call. So just check those each day and make sure that you're staying up on things. Number 4, drivers, please ensure that any changes to a trip or driving assignment, the date, the departure time, the driver, etc., are sent to Deb at the transportation office. Any request to do so shall be directed to the transportation office. Unless you receive the change from Deb, stay with the original assignment. Sometimes um, a coach or a teacher, or field trip supervisor, someone will say, "Hey, we want to leave 30 minutes earlier," and I talked to so and so, and they said they drive because they like to go to that place, and so we got her to drive, and that's not how it works. So um, maybe you can help squash some of that as they approach you, and you just say, "Hey, oh yeah, we have to put that through the office, and no changes are going to happen unless that change comes from the office." So thanks for doing that. Number 5, thanks for following the chain of command. Accident reports, student behavior, time clock issues, excuse me. Some of those things like that, we'd like you to go through your bus coordinator, the garage coordinator, then the coordinator to the supervisor, and then the supervisor to the superintendent if it needs to go that far. And that helps us get the work done in a timely, professional, and efficient manner. And then those who know and those who are the ones that can make the change or can have a say in what needs to be done are in the group. So that's important to follow that chain of command. Number 6, drivers, thanks for being attentive to messages and invitations to complete tasks or to attend trainings. Things like DOT recertification, maybe there's a CPR test, training training coming up that we've scheduled. Those kinds of things will be coming through your email or your texting. And so just be aware of that and be ready to do what you're asked there. Number 7, drivers, please drive the bus you've been assigned to drive. If there's a need to take a different bus than the one usually assigned, please verify with your garage coordinator and inform Deb. I appreciate each driver's care for the bus that you've been assigned. The expectation is to sweep at least a couple of times a week or as needed and wash weekly or as needed. As the weather turns, you'll want to wash your bus more often. It's important that we present to the public a clean and well taken care of bus. It promotes a public confidence in us and a higher level of safety for us as we ensure optimal performance from the bus and the driver. So uh, hopefully you've got those minutes added to your route that you can take a few minutes when it's needed to clean and wash your bus, and so we can be good there. Number 9, on that note, please remember that while you're assigned to a bus to drive a route or a bus to drive a trip, that bus may be used at the discretion of the transportation supervisor. While it's considered your bus, it is actually a district bus, and if needed to serve the students, it will be used at the supervisor's discretion. So there's sometimes when we need to do some switching around, or we may need to borrow the bus that you've been assigned. This is kind of a double-edged sword because I love that you take ownership in your bus and you keep it clean, and that shows professionalism. However, if we need to use that bus for one or another reason, we'll just say, hey, we're going to use your bus, and we'll take your bus. So, yeah, it says Duchesne County School District. Thank you. And but I love the fact that you have ownership of the care for it. So keep doing that, but be aware we might have to do that. And the last one here, sorry about all the items here, but try drive. And here's just one to think about. Be aware that the public seems to be acutely aware of how we are driving and what speeds we reach. Several posts on social media appear weekly, and I'm receiving some phone calls or visits to my office to report bus driver issues. Um, there's a there's a group on Facebook, I think it's called Unit Based Introduce, yeah, traffic and travel and weather. Yeah, there you go. Traffic and weather. And boy, they love to try to stir stuff up, it seems like to me. Um, a lot of the stuff that's happening, some on all of our trip buses, everybody's aware of this. We have the Samsara programming, so we can tell how fast the drivers are driving. Um, we can tell if they're braking hard, harder than usual, harder than necessary. We can tell if they're following too closely. And our trip drivers are amazing. You guys are doing great. Um, but every once in a while, you may be not paying attention to the speed or whatever, and that's just human error if you want to call it that. But we want to keep that to the speed limit. And I do know this: when buses pass a vehicle, the people in the vehicle think it's going so fast, and for some reason, how could something so big uh,
Also,
dare to go so fast, and they're probably just going maybe 5 to 7 miles an hour over the speed limit to get around, and then they settle back to the groove there. But anyway, we got a lot of people watching us, and I guess it's okay. I try to tell them. I did get a phone call on the weekend. Um, the gal has an app that is connected to their kid's phone on the bus. The kid has the phone on the bus, and they can GPS and they can tell how fast the bus is going. And so technology is wonderful. Uh, be careful how fast you're going. If you need to pass, let's do it safely and then settle back into the speed limit probably. So anyway, just be aware and drive accordingly. Any comment from anybody there?
Had a little girl. The phones are doing 85, and I'm like, everyone's 75. But she was saying on her little thing.
Yeah. Said 85.
that computer technology is not always accurate.
Mike Foy just mentioned that one of his passengers said, "Hey, you're going 85," and he never got over 75. So there are some problems with some of that, I know.
Mike, I think we need to reiterate that we have wonderful drivers, route drivers, trip drivers. I don't know if they can hear me or not, but anyway, and we don't want these cameras to be, and you've said it a million times, and I got you kind of thing.
Right.
It's a peace of mind for me to be able to click on Samsara and see where the driver is and if everything's all right, if the bus is running all right, and things like that. So, it's a wonderful tool, but I don't want the drivers to think that we're watching every move they make.
Great point. Thank you. Gina just mentioned with Samsara, we don't want the trip drivers. We just have them on the trip buses right now. We're trying to be as transparent as we can. We're not really using them to get a gotcha or to catch you doing something wrong. But if something's happening, we get a complaint, we can verify or we can refute. And there's a lot of good in that. Several times I said, no, we have actually GPS and it shows the speed on our program that we use to track buses and to see how they're doing and lots of other safety things. And it only had the bus going 76 and you said they were going, in the 80s. So I know, and then I try to go through it. It looks like they're going faster and maybe they were passing you to get around or whatever. And so we can talk it through. That helps us with the public a little bit too. But yeah, the way we want to use that Samsara program, and eventually we want to get it on all of our buses so that we can track and help keep safe. But we want to do like a point system. And I know that there are a couple in Roosevelt, Ashley and Caitlin. They can get on and check their driving record through that program and how fast was I going? Did I follow too closely? Some of the things that we mentioned, and we can put it together a kind of a point system and maybe have a reward system for drivers who are according to what our parameters are set in the program, they're doing what we're asking them to do and being safe. And so we want to take that positive approach other than oh, I saw that you were speeding or you passed, too fast or whatever. So that's what's important there. So thank you for those comments. Okay, Amy, it's your turn.
Alrighty, I just wanted to talk to you guys about liability today. Sometimes I think we think that just because the district carries risk management, that every incident or accident that could happen is just automatically covered by that. But I just want to share some stuff with you that maybe you didn't think about that is not covered with risk management. So accidents and injuries. That can involve pedestrians, other motorists, passengers, especially on our bus. And that's why we're in a safety sensitive position, is because we affect so many different people with our great big vehicle. Bus accidents are not as frequent as other types of accidents, but they still do occur. And other parties want compensation. They're going through pain, they're suffering. They may have lost wages or have to go through rehabilitation. They have a death of a loved one, maybe from a bus accident. And so people want to seek that deep pocket. And so they're going to go after whoever they can when their loved one is involved in an accident or there's an injury. So it's important to understand who's liable. So let's talk about what the district is liable for. So our employer, the district, has a duty to provide safe, well-maintained vehicles. I think they're doing that. Ensure drivers are qualified. That's where the training comes in. That's where like our drug and alcohol clearinghouse that Deb does every year. She's making sure that those drivers haven't gotten themselves into trouble. I'm tracking all of your requirements, like your DOT physical, any of your continuing ed credits. The district has to make sure that the drivers are qualified. So we're doing a good job there, I think. The district also has to ensure that drivers are trained. When there is an accident or an incident, that's one of the first places that they start looking and flipping over rocks, is to see, has that driver been trained to secure a wheelchair? Has that driver been trained in the proper use of their loading lights? So I think we're covering our bases there, and you guys are doing great by coming to the trainings, by attending your safety meetings. And so the district's doing well there. Ensure drivers are properly supervised. And I think our district is doing that too. So the district is doing pretty good for their part of this. You can go to the next. So bus companies are typically held liable for the actions of their employees under employer vicarious liability laws. They carry risk management insurance. So, okay. Now, let's talk about this. Bus drivers have personal liability. So, for example, if you're driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that's your personal choice that you have decided to do. You can lose your license, you can get fined, you can seek jail time. There's lots of ways that you can be in trouble for that. So you'll be personal liable for that. Touching of a student, there's a couple of cases in Utah that are pretty recent where the driver has had charges of sexual exploitation of a minor. So one just last year in Washington County, This driver had 20 counts of that. And so it's important to make sure that we're watching and monitoring and no touching of students. Okay, reckless driving. You're just driving down the road and it's in a reckless manner. You're gonna get some probably reckless endangerment charges, and you could lose your license, you could have a suspension or something. Speeding, CDL manual says that commercial motor carriers or motor drivers are not to go 15 miles over the speed limit. They can lose their license, they can have a temporary suspension. So it's real important that we're paying attention to our speeds, as mentioned earlier. A distracted driving situation could cause us to have personal liability if our distractedness is what caused an accident. Driver fatigue, failing to get adequate training. Maybe you never come to a safety meeting or attend in services. You don't know really what's going on. That can fall back on the driver for having that training offered and the driver choosing not to participate in that. Cell phone use, a faulty logbook, knowingly violating your hours of service, that can fall back on the driver. If you're doing an inaccurate pre-trip or no pre-trip, that can fall back personally on the driver when highway patrol pulls you over. And all of these could be lack of duty of care. There's a certain standard that's expected of bus drivers, and the negligence can contribute to an accident, and then the courts can prove that the driver didn't have that duty of care or lacked and was the direct cause of the incident.
Hey, Amy, I got a question.
Yes.
So is there a difference? What's the difference between being guilty of some of these things, whether you're driving the bus or your personal vehicle?
Well, we're held to a higher standard, having that commercial motor vehicle, our CDL driver's license. And so those things that are listed there, it's more important that we toe the mark. We've got a lot on our shoulders. So some of these things can affect the district as well, because the people are going to try to go for a deep pocket if they can. But some of this does fall back right onto the bus driver.
Emily Myers, that union calling about a wheelchair student that hasn't been picked up. Does anyone have an idea what that is?
What? I didn't catch the question.
What's the name of the student? Do you know?
Sounds like it might be
Oh, it's the radio.
video.
All right, next slide. So sometimes when we add in a protected class, things get even a little trickier, because the protected classes require extra care to accommodate them. So for example, if a special needs driver fails to use the equipment correctly as they have been trained, they just put the wheelchair in, they face the student sideways on the bus, they're just kind of wrapping and strapping, they're in an accident, that driver can be personally at fault because they failed to use the equipment right. They can't say, well, the equipment failed the student. It can be proven that the equipment was not faulty. It was that the driver failed to take that extra care for the protected class. So there is some shared liability. I mentioned in some scenarios, the driver and the district are going to share the responsibility. An example would be hours of service violation. Like if the district is aware that the driver has maybe worked 60 hours and then they're going to do 2 or 3 field trips that are going to put them over on their hours of service, the district can get a violation as well as the driver. And what that would mean is that the district will get a lower safety rating. They can also have fines and penalties, and the driver can get fines and have a suspended license. So some scenarios, it's a little bit of a shared liability. That's why it's important that we hold ourselves to a standard and say, you know what, I'm going to be over on my hours if I take that long field trip. Or, we need to report that if we do have another job that's taken 25 hours a week that the district isn't aware of, that we make them aware so that we can all work together to stay in compliance here. There can be other at-fault parties, like other drivers. Maybe it's a road maintenance situation, like maybe the road crew didn't put a sign up that there is a road out of service ahead and there's a great big hole in the pavement that, the bus may go through. The road department would be held liable. And then manufacturer of some equipment, for the most part, Q Strength, that's our wheelchair, they stand behind their product. If we are installing correctly, they stand behind their equipment. But it's really important that for us, that in that pre-trip, we're making sure that equipment is in good working order, that it's not faded. The seatbelts haven't sat in the sun on a bus and faded, and now they're going to fray and fall apart. But if we have done our part and it does just pop out of the floor and it's a faulty equipment, then the manufacturer would be at fault. And then mechanical, maybe there's some faulty parts. I don't really have an example of that one, but you can go to the next slide. Alrighty. So I just want to thank you guys and just remind you to do your part to do a good job.
Thanks, Amy. Any questions before we move on? Guys have any? You good? Okay, appreciate that information. I wanted to talk a little bit, just a review of what we started last year, and then for the new drivers, how this system for dealing with kids and some of the behaviors that we're finding on the bus. And I always start off this discussion with this statement: I have a high respect for bus drivers and the challenges that you're faced, or maybe that's not the right word, that your back is facing, dealing with the kids and their behaviors. And so I didn't realize how difficult or how challenging that could be until I got in that seat myself. And so it's been good for me to see that and to feel that pressure, I guess, of how do I keep kids safe and at the same time keep my sanity. And so it's a lot harder than teaching a classroom, I'll tell you that. So let's go through a few things here, and some of this will be reviewed for a lot of us, but it's okay. So we've put together some a chart or a document that has our behavior levels that we want to address. As you can see, hopefully you've got a page in front of you, starting with level 0. Under the description column, we have the bus, and the bus would basically mean the driver. And level 0 is just everything's great. The kids are respectful, or the student is respectful. They're not disrupting others. Their behavior is just tremendous, and they're happy. That's what we want to see, of course. Well, that's not what we get, and we don't even get that in real life in other places, but we're shooting for that. Let's go to the next level. Level 1 is still with the bus driver. We have maybe a student or two, or maybe several, that aren't following the rules. So now what do we do? So over to the right, we have possible interventions. Expected behavior is corrected or modeled on the bus. So the driver takes that on and says, hey, let me remind you how this works. As soon as you get on the bus, you go to your assigned seat in your seating chart, you sit down on your pockets, and you stay seated until it's time to get off. So you just remind them what the rule is, what the expected behavior is. You document that informally, and I'll show you that here in a second. You can notify. These are possible interventions. just to remind you, they're not you have tos. You can call the parent and say, hey, had to talk to your son today. He keeps getting out of his seat. Can you help me out there? That's not a bad thing. Let's go to level 2. And here you'll see the difference at the beginning there. It says bus/garage. So now we've got the coordinator involved. So in Alamont, that would be Gina. And so some of the things that would qualify for level 2 would be more of level 1 stuff. They're not following the rules. They are distracting, disrupting, or disrespecting. Maybe they're pushing a little bit. Maybe they're talking out, screaming, distracting the driver, some of that stuff, and inappropriate language, maybe. Over to the right in that column, possible interventions, you go ahead and you remind them what the rule is. Tell them what you're expecting from them, why it's important that they follow the rule. If you're watching them, how can you watch the road? Some of that stuff so that they can realize that, hey, and I do think some kids, especially in the afternoon, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the afternoon behavior is a little bit different than the morning behavior. I think once they get out of school and off campus, we're out of school. And so, yeah. In the morning, they're a little sleepy still, maybe. But yeah, now it's ready to, yeah, maybe they got a candy bar or something before they got it as a reward in the classroom or something. But sometimes that behavior, they kind of think they're free to do stuff because we're out of school, and that's not quite correct. The bus is part of the school, and it's we expect the same behavior. Again, you'll document that you spoke to this kid. You can call the parents, and you can maybe try a different a different seat in their seating assignment, and maybe put them by someone who is a happy person. They can kind of keep them busy, some of that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are the first 2 levels. I want to skip down to this page right here. It's one of your pages. What page is that? Is that page 2? On page 2, this is where you would handle the stuff that you've done. When they get to level 1, just write the date, then describe what it was that you dealt with. And when they get to level 2, write down the date and describe what behavior you had to deal with. And again, if you called parents, you can put that in there. If you didn't, that's fine. And that helps us know that you've done some stuff. Okay. I think it's important to the garage coordinator when you come to them and say, hey, I've got an issue working with a kid, I'm a little bit worried, so on and so forth. And basically the worry comes because you're being forced to deal with this behavior while you're trying to drive the bus safely. And I think that's the time when it starts to become real and when we need to address the behavior. And then that way, when you hand this and show this to the supervisor or to your coordinator, sorry, the coordinator will say, yeah, oh, Mike's done this and he did it on this date. He tried that. He moved him around. He even called the parents on the second one. So we're on level 3 now. And so there's a little bit of a paper trail, I guess you could call it. And it's a documentation of the things that we've tried. Okay. Let's go back up to the level 3 here. So level 3 would be more of the same, 1 and 2 stuff. They're breaking the rules. They're not following directions. Disrespectful. They're defiant, destroying things, degrading. They might be insulting others, bullying, maybe some damage to the bus. That you can see the behavior is kind of ratcheting up, right, as we go here. And then you can see some of the things. A lot of it's the same as what we said before on the right-hand side. At school, we could refer them to a counselor, and the counselor can go through a refocus lesson, and we can talk about specific behaviors, defiance, following directions, some of those things. They have lessons here at school that they can go through, especially with the younger kids. Let's go to level 4. We have so level 3 was with the garage coordinator. Now check out where level 4 comes. Now it's the garage coordinator and the district and myself. And so you still make the referral, you're still documenting what's happening, but now in this case, since I'm in the Malamont, now it's Gina and I who are talking to the principal, talking to the parents, making sure we get the story right from the driver, and we are addressing the student and the issue face to face, probably during the school day sometime. And so those behaviors are more the same. Now we get a little bit more serious where we're maybe it's has to do with drugs or alcohol. Maybe they're harassing each other. There's some fighting maybe or threats. Um, these are behaviors that really can cause a bus not to be safe. So on the right side, that could mean that we suspend him from the bus. We do a behavior contract when we get to these levels at school. And I forgot to mention, this level system is exactly what the principals and teachers are using at the schools. And so we've changed it just a touch to fit our buses and our situations. But these levels are the very same things that the teachers and the principals are using. So we're doing the same thing that they are. Um, the behavior contract is part of that. And it was up on level 3 as well, that behavior contract. Parents are notified by myself. I always call parents when I talk to kids. And so now we have a situation where the parent, it might be the first time that they've been called when I call them. Gina may have called them earlier or met with them earlier with the principal, and then she lets the driver know. If I meet with a parent or the student with the principal, I usually tell Gina, I always tell Gina, and then we tell the bus driver what happened and where we're at with that. Okay, so that's level 4. My other hat that I wear is the student services director. And so I get to deal with the behavior kids, whether they're on the bus or whether they're in the schools. And so these things like threats, weapons, um, selling drugs or alcohol at school, bringing them on campus, those kinds of things are right up my alley on my other job. And so if that happens when it gets to level 5, those kids are usually expelled, and they're either expelled for a full year or something less than that. We have a program called the Alternative Instruction Program where we can help them caught up with their schooling. We maybe have them come into a building in Roosevelt for maybe once or twice a week for an hour or two, and then they do their work on Edgenuity, which is an online program. And we try to keep them going that way. When I first started this job, I was expelling them for a year. They were gone for a year. When they came back, they hadn't changed their behavior and they were a year behind in school. And so we thought we got to do something. We can do better than that. And so we put this in place, and it's working on some kids, but they're still it's hard for them to stay up on things on their studies, but it's a good effort. It's a good start. Um, but you can kind of see there. By this time, if they've been suspended by the bus or if they get suspended again, that's usually about as long as they get to ride the bus that year. That they don't have to be expelled from school or expelled from the bus. Um, per se, but we try to give them as many chances as we can. But I always kind of go by this rule, and I expect you guys as bus drivers to do the same. You're gonna exhaust all of your efforts to try to help that student be safe on the bus. So try to move them, try to talk to them, call their parents, talk to their friends. Um, Show them what it looks like to sit on their pockets for some of the little ones or something like that. Just do everything that you can think of to help them. But then there comes a time when you can see that all that you're trying is not working. And so now that focus, that exhaustion that you've sent that towards that student, now it turns to the other 50 kids on the bus. And that's who we got to make sure that we're protecting, and we kind of changed focus a little bit. And that's how I did it as a teacher and a principal. And I think that's a pretty good way to do your best in all situations. So try your hardest as drivers to help these students realize what's safe and what they need to be doing. But when you can see that defiance is continuing, it's time to focus on the safety of all of us a little bit more. And then that's when Gina and I would be involved in suspensions and expulsions from different things. Okay? Let's go back to the documentation page. So where it says behavior contracts, that would be after level 2 on our chart, on our pages here. So Gina or myself, we would put together a behavior contract, and that would show, it would list what happened on the bus. Uh, it would list what we're going to do to fix the problem and what's happening now. And if a student needs anything, maybe it's okay to let them listen to music on the bus or something that we'll try everything. Put it on that paper. We're going to put it on that contract. And then the consequences are, if you keep doing it, you won't be able to ride the bus, and it could mean, expulsion from school too. And so those are the things that we're working towards. And you can see here that, yeah, that it goes down, and you can list those behavior levels. Let me give you an example. What time is it? How much time do I have? Not almost 9 o'clock. Okay, I'm almost done. So let me just give you an example. This is just an example of something that we've had to deal with. We've got a kid named Billy, behavior level 1. He refuses to stay sitting in his seat while the bus is moving. I reminded Billy, this is the driver writing this. I reminded Billy of the rule that it's to keep him and others on the bus safe. Showed him the magnet of the bus rules and pointed out that the ones that he's following, but went over the importance of staying seated. Takes 20 seconds. You can document it. Next one. Billy was defiant when I asked him to sit down and stay seated. After stopping the bus and waiting, he finally sat down. Second time to address not staying seated and defiance. Safety is at risk. Showed him this documentation and indicated his parents would receive a phone call. Next violation will be step 3. So these are just examples of how a bus driver can document this. And then as it gets to the next behaviors, Gina and I, the coordinators and I will fill the rest of this stuff out as we deal with those behaviors. So the important thing is, let's see. Let me get this slide. So it says drivers can take a picture of the behavior intervention documentation and send it to the coordinator and the supervisor. The coordinator and the supervisor will communicate the consequences back to the driver. So we want to communicate well. When I finally meet with parents, when Gina meets with parents or the coordinator does and shows them this documentation and the things we've been trying to do, it's really difficult for most parents to contend with that. Oh, you've done this, you've done this. Oh, it happened more than once. Oh, yeah, I remember that call. Yep, this is this. Yeah, we tried that. Oh, and now he's threatening to hurt someone. See where that falls on the levels? And it's pretty hard for a parent to say, hey, you're doing something personal against my kid when we've got all this documentation. And so we're not doing it to be nasty to the family or the kid. We just want to, we're documenting it so that we have a case and, and so that we can, if we need to remove him because of safety, him or her, we'll do it. And we don't need to wait for that. You can also move the student back up. That's kind of confusing. You can move them from a level 3 to a 2 if they've earned that, and so they can take their behaviors. If they're doing well, you can move them back up on the levels, and that gives them hope that they can understand. Hey, I'm not in the doghouse all the time. Now I can go back to my seat. I can do whatever, and that's up to you to do that. And so what's funny about this, down at the bottom, it says most kids understand levels having played video games. And when you talk about levels to them, they want to get to that next level. Remember how those video games work? And so this resonates with kids because they understand levels and how to get to the next one. So the important thing, let me read this here. In the end, you as the driver knows when it's time to begin this process. Remember to do your best to teach, model, and encourage, but ultimately the safety of the bus is paramount. It's better to deal with it in real time and document the behavior management efforts than avoid this situation or look the other way and then want blood when you can't take it anymore. I remember the first week when I started teaching ninth grade English at Union, this one kid wasn't following my directions, and I kind of let it go. Something happened at home, if I remember. I had a colleague say something about the way I handled the ball game the other night as a coach, and then that kid did that very same behavior again. And man, I let him have it. I just yelled and screamed and went and talked to the principal. And now I'm mad, and you need to do something about this kid. And it got away from me. And so that's what happens if you don't deal with those situations in a timely way when they're happening. But at the same time, so I'm not saying, when Billy gets out of his seat the first time, you bark at him and treat it like he's trying to break out of prison. It's up to you how you want to do it. You all have your different ways, and your personality means a lot. But when you feel like that defiance is starting to show itself, the beast is coming out, that's when you need to start this process. They could be out of their seat 3 or 4 times, but you feel like you're still able to work with them. You're building a relationship maybe. But then when you feel like, hey, if this isn't going to work, then I'd start doing this. I'd start documenting and I'd start the process because, 2 or 3 more times, who's to say a deer runs out and he's walking around on the bus and you hit your brakes and that kid goes flying and probably won't, if he's, halfway in the bus, he probably won't make it to the windshield, but he'll probably hurt himself and other kids by, flying around in the bus. So, yeah, I just want I want you as drivers to have that power and that sense because you're the ones dealing with it. If I could do that first week again, as a teacher, that second or third time when they were defiant, I would have addressed that kid right there. Said, hey, I've already talked to you a couple of times. This is why we're doing this. This is my expectation. Let's make it happen. And if it happened again, then that's when I would start the referral process to the office, whatever steps we had there. So, it's not that I don't want to talk to you. If you do get fired up on something, please call us. I always want to call it. I always want to help, but you can help yourself and the process if you take care of that in a timely way. So, my mouth is dry. I've been talking way too much. I don't know if Cindy made it. Are you there, Cindy? Do you have anything for us today?
I'm just a couple of reminders. Just remember FERPA, especially with your behavior plans. If you're documenting, that information needs to be put in your lockbox. And then healthcare plans or 504s, even with typical students, make sure that those are locked up. Everybody should have a lock binder. If you don't, let me know, or your garage supervisors know. And then just the other thing, well, 2 more things. Sometimes some of our drivers have to sub for other drivers and you may end up driving a sped route that you normally don't do. All of those buses have aids on them. And sometimes maybe at the high school especially, one of the classroom aides may want to get on the bus to help strap down that wheelchair. Don't let them do that. You don't know if they've been trained or not. We've had a little bit of an issue with that. So just make sure that the aide that is assigned to that sped bus is the one, or the driver that's doing the securing of the wheelchairs. And then I had a situation a couple of weeks ago. A driver had come and talked to me, and she had a stop in the middle of the road. She was letting off a large group of kids at that particular stop. And so she would use her reds, but then get out of her seat as she talked to the students as they got off the bus. That was helping with some behavior problems. But remember that if you are out of your seat and you have a car that runs your reds and a student gets hit and killed, that's another thing that can come back on you. You need to be in your seat watching to make sure those kids are safe as they're crossing the road. So those are the only things that I had. Any questions?
Thanks, Cindy. I'm going to clarify with just my experience. I drove Route 15 the other day, and we have a couple of preschoolers there. And you had mentioned that Lindy has been trained, and she can help buckle those preschoolers in while I stayed in my seat. I was kind of like, now I'm supposed to get out of my seat, but I'm here at the bus stop at the school, and so I appreciate you telling me that Lindy was trained, and so I just said, hey, Lindy, can you help buckle them in and make sure they're good? And she came right on and did that. So I think that's also an option, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have quite a few aides at the schools that have been trained to do the car seats. The wheelchairs is a little different situation because of that equipment.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I just have a comment about the reds that Cindy was talking about, the use of the loading lights. There was a case in Utah in 2014 where a driver failed to use their student loading lights correctly, and they ended up doing a year in jail for that. And they also had to do community service, and they lost their job. And so it's real important that we're using our reds anytime a student has to cross in front of the bus. We are to use our stop sign, our 8-ways, our reds, student load lights to make sure that those kids are safe. It'll be a personal liability if we do not, because that case law has been established. So just a reminder on that.
That's one of those out of service things too. If your reds are not working properly, you know, that bus can't go on route. And it's for that reason.
So Amy, can you review real quick when to use your reds and when you can use your yellow or your hazards?
Sure. The only time you're going to use your hazards down on your steering wheel would be like if you're pulling over to do a curbside stop, you're not having students cross in front of your bus. You are you're having a mechanical problem with your bus and you're using your hazards. Maybe there are kids in a crosswalk and you're letting other drivers know to slow down. You're using your hazards at a railroad crossing, hazards only. And those are your lights that are down in here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but if you're using your loading lights, that's your 8-ways, your reds, your loading lights. The only times you use those are when students are crossing in front of your bus and when you have an emergency. For example, if you have a student having a seizure and you are meeting an ambulance, you can do the emergency switch on your master, or keep your door a little opened if your bus does not have that, to keep your reds on so that you can meet that ambulance. If there was another emergency, you could use that, like if, I don't know, some big fatality right in front of you and you're slowing traffic down and stopping them, but only for emergencies, only for crossing kids. We don't use these at a railroad crossing. You're going to use your hazards down here.
Thank you.
Uh,
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate the hour. Everybody have a great day and a great week, and we'll see it. Oh, did we want to mention that November 7th is our next training? Is that the right date, Amy? I think. We'll send out the information. We're going to have a after routes training for 2 or 3 hours there in November, but we'll send that out here in a minute. Okay. Anything else? Darren, are you awake?
Yep, I'm awake.
Okay, just checking you.
Today's Harry's last safety meeting.
Oh, congratulations, Harry.
Today's Harry's last.
Last safety meeting.
Oh, yeah, I think he is.
Okay, thanks. See ya.
Respect the shot.